Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum, boys and girls. Welcome to the only podcast that is not currently indictment for Russian espionage. Because we're not Russian, and I don't speak Russian, and truthfully, I don't even like Russian salad dressing on my salads. So there's my dad joke for the night. Ba-dum, chink. Moving right along, we're going to get right into tonight's show because tonight's show is episode 49. And for those of you that can count, what comes after 49? The amazing episode 50 that we're planning some amazing stuff for, but I'm not going to tell anybody about that. But before we begin tonight, I just want to give a huge shout out to a couple of our Twitter peoples. I want to say thank you to, and these are their handles, so you got to go look them up. I want to say thank you to Libya Liberty, and I want to say thank you to I Am the Q, because today was hashtag PunishAMuslim, and Libya Liberty came out and said, no, we're going to hopefully get them to do a typo, and she had Publish a Muslim Day, and she shared one of our links to the show, so thank you for that. And I Am the Q shared the hashtag Love a Muslim, and I think she listed like 14 or 15 of us, and I was one of them. So thank you for that, I Am the Q. You are a hero. You are awesome. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the hardest working Imam that I know, Imam Azhar.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace and greetings to all our listeners from across the globe, to those who engage with us, to those who listen silently, and to those who spread the word to their friends. By allowing them to realize that this is a podcast where we discuss contemporary matters and issues. And what we really want from you is to be a part of the discussion. We want you to engage with us, and that is why we have Raw Islam with Imam Azhar, brackets Carl. You won't see that name there, but it's there. It's there in spirit. And you could get us on Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes. So we welcome everyone from around the world. And this is, I think, Carl, the first podcast in our 49 episodes where I gave a preliminary discussion as to what we're going to be talking about tonight based on the topic of the day, which was Punish a Muslim Day. Did you get a chance to see that, Carl?
On your Facebook page?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I did not. I actually have been in training all day, so I didn't get the opportunity to see that. But I will be able to say that our training will double over into later tonight. So continue.
Okay, so basically, Carl and I have been speaking for the last 2 weeks on various topics. And one of the topics that we touched upon was the upcoming Punish a Muslim Day, which apparently falls on the 3rd of April, which is today. And what we have noticed as we were highlighting that this is very obnoxious, it's wrong, it's not humane for people in this day and age after all that we've learned and all that we've seen from demeaning one another and demonizing one another and pinning one on the other, that this doesn't lead to any fruitful destination. That this was something that we felt wasn't right, and I'm sure all our listeners agree with me on that, and that we wanted to talk about how these things cannot occur again. In the period of that, what happened was last week in Sheffield, a man was stabbed while riding a bike. He was severely injured. He was stabbed, I believe, in the neck and also on the leg. And then yesterday we had an acid attack. I think it was yesterday, if not, it was Sunday, where someone in London was walking and a passerby in a car threw acid on this individual. And someone recorded the response from the paramedics as they were washing that person down and trying to remove the acid substance from their face. So there is a fear, and there was a fear, and the day is now over that such actions are taking place. What are the precautionary measures we should take in order to prevent some harm? Well, a lot of people that I talked to, including families and friends and relatives, there was a lot that was being done within the country, within various cities. For example, people taking extra precaution when they're going to the mosque today. Women who wear the niqab and the face covering were kind of told not to wear it. And so the day has passed. It's close to midnight in London. If it's not already past midnight, it's the next day. But Carl, I have an issue with this whole thing. My issue is that we here in America tend to continue a trend that's known culturally around the world about Muslims, is that we're very reactive. We always want to jump and scream and yell to the top of our lungs about crying foul, basically, that this is wrong, this is wrong. And there's only one reason I think we do that, Carl. It's because we want people to acknowledge in our faces, yes, Carl, that was wrong. Like, I don't feel that your sympathy is acceptable unless you articulate yourself and say, hey, Carl, you're my Muslim friend. I'm so sorry for you. That's wrong what's happening to you. But, hang in there. I'm there for you. And if there's anything I could do, just let me know. So our reactive nature has taken us to seek sympathy from people, that people should sympathize with our situation. And so to me, I felt this is very wrong. And this is a continuous trend where we're constantly getting engrossed in certain highlight issues that come about every week, every month, every year. We exhaust our entirety in trying to engage in that to create, I don't know what type of awareness we're trying to create, but ultimately there is no fruition post that event. Carl, I just want to hear your thoughts on that before I continue.
Well, here's what I think about that. No, so there is I don't know if there's if a cry or a search for sympathy is a thing. I'm sure that has to be some of it, and I'm sure that has to be a factor at some level. But there needs to be. I'm stunned by this. Okay, I'm stunned by this because at some point, and I'm sure, we have the Love a Muslim and we have the Publish a Muslim and we have all of this stuff, but at some point, the need for that shouldn't exist.
I agree.
And I know I shouldn't give this example, but I'm going to. So one of the things that was glaring to me this week was that President Trump made a statement that people are coming across the border in caravans, so that they can take advantage of DACA. Well, the problem with that is that you had to be here before, I think it was 2007, and you had to be under 32 or 30 by 2012, which means anybody that illegally enters the country now cannot join the DACA program, which means his statement was false. But nobody went, hey, that's not right. It was more of his supporters went, yeah, those people are coming over here and trying to join the DACA program. No, it's wrong. It's wrong. So at what point do those people stop and say, wait, that's not right. There's something different here. There's something going on that's not kosher. And it's the same with this stuff. At what point do they stop and say, wait, why does this even exist? This isn't right. This isn't real. This can't be. And it just carries across that feeling of, wait, what? And why aren't more people going, wait, what? It goes just across the board on everything.
And so, Carl, you're hitting the nail on the head, because at the end
that's
of
what
the day,
I do. That's why you keep me around.
Well, that's why, because at the end, don't say that. At the end of the day, someone has to change a narrative, and that change of narrative has to come from us. And if we exhaust our energy in trying to gain that sympathy, and I want to stick to that for two reasons. Number one, Carl, this was real, but it was real in the UK. These letters were circulated in the UK to certain mosques. They were sent to the mosque via mail. But then it became a trend on social media where I see and I feel, and people could correct me if they feel I'm wrong, because a lot of people felt that I was kind of out of line on this, but I feel we here in America have spoken more about it. We have spread it more than they did. If you look at the letter alone, look at Hassan Minhaj. Hassan Minhaj spoke about it on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. And he's like, I'm so happy about this. First of all, it looks like a garage sale letter, right? He made fun of that. Number two, it was so unprofessional. And he's like, you know what? Fine. One day is fine. Come and beat me one day. But if I'm fine the next 364 days, it's better than fearing Islamophobia on a day-to-day basis. So he was trying to downplay. But understand, this became attention on mainstream media because I feel we as Muslims continue to spread this when this wasn't even being circulated here in America. Understand this. This happened in the UK. And I'm going to talk about what I feel caused this to happen in the UK. I've got a whole thing lined up for that. But we here in America, I feel we're constantly talking about and engaging in discussions about things which will not change the narrative. Let's put aside emotions right now. By us spreading the word, did we change the narrative? No. And by us continuing to attack and address each attack that's on us, or react to every attack on us, is that going to change the narrative? No, it isn't. Because I always speak about this in my training sessions, and I think I shared it here once before in one of our 48 podcasts, that there's 4 stages of human life. One is inactive, where you don't care if it's day or night, you don't care what's happening, you don't care if it's raining or sunshine, inactive. And then the next stage up from that is reactive. Reactive is, of course, what we're seeing right now. We're supposed to be working towards being proactive, where it means that you're ahead of the game, that before these things arise, you have put together a structure, a platform, a foundation in your societies where people say, oh, scoff. They'll just like forget it. It's like, it's not even worth my time. But if it's worth your time and it's worth your concern, that means you fear something that you're not supposed to fear, that wasn't supposed to come about. So you're not only in defense right now, but you're all 11 players, including the goalkeeper, standing in front of the net, scared that someone's going to take a shot. Where they're going to take a shot because you've left the whole pitch, meaning the field, open. You know, the entire pitch is open. They're just going to stand there and shoot the ball. Unless one of you take the ball and start running to the opposite end, it's not going to change. And so this is one thing. We are not changing the narrative since 9/11. Number 2, Carl, is that, yes, we spread it more than the people in the UK did based on my interactions with my classmates on WhatsApp and my friends and so on and so forth. My in-laws live there. Many of my families live there. So this is number 1. Number 2 is our reaction. Number 3, Carl, I said that we are monetizing on this. So there's organizations, and I'm not going to take any names tonight, where they're like, you know what, if this is going on wrong, guess what? Support us. We'll take care of you. We'll make sure nothing happens to you. I remember sitting in a fundraiser of an organization, Carl, and this is what they're saying. If you guys don't support us, people like Trump will be elected tomorrow, and it's going to be very difficult for Muslims to live here. And guess who got elected that year, Carl?
Trump did.
Trump did. And so I go back the following year to the fundraiser, and they're like, if you don't support us, and we'll not be able to defend your rights against Donald Trump. I'm like, what's wrong with you guys? We as Muslims, please listen to me very carefully, everyone, tonight. We as Muslims, given Islam, we're given a social responsibility. We're not supposed to seek the sympathy of people. We're supposed to sympathize with people. We're not supposed to care about our problems. We're supposed to care about the larger picture. Remind yourselves, recall the story of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he's digging the trench and his companions come to him and they say, oh Prophet, look at us. He lifted their shirt up. He said, we have a stone tied to our stomach. He said, that's fine. Look at mine. I have 2 stones tied to my stomach. I don't care about my stomach right now because we're here to protect the stomachs and lives and the future of this whole city. So get on with it, type of thing was told to them. Let's get moving. And that's exactly what we're not doing. We're trying to monetize on it, number 1. Number 2, we're forgetting that as Muslims, if there was a Harm a Muslim Day or Punish a Muslim Day, we should have had a hashtag Save Humanity Day, Save Minority Day. We should be deflecting this harm imminent harm that's coming to us by saying we're going to do only good, because that's what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said. Silman qata'ak wa'fu amman zalamak wa ahsin ila man asa'a ilayk. You do good with those who cut off from you. People are cutting off from you. You're going to join with them. You forgive those who transgress your rights, and you do good to those who do bad to you. This is the teachings of our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So in scope of this, we are not fulfilling our duty. So we're supposed to go from being inactive, way beyond being reactive, to becoming proactive. Proactive means you're getting ahead of the curve. You know what the final stage is, Carl?
No.
No? It
No.
kind of is what you talked about. Why is this still happening? We're supposed to be preventive. We're supposed to be the ones that prevent this from ever happening again. Islamophobia and all the other phobias in our society should be done by now. But the fact that racism still lingers in our greater society, in our Muslim community, in every other people of faith in different ways, their social status, that means that we are semi-proactive, but we haven't reached the platform where we could be preventive, that these things should never arise again. So I feel us on this side of the pond reacted too much about it. Let's go back to the people in England. The people in England, I lived there for close to 8 years. I spent a good chunk of my teen life there. And I want to tell you something, Carl. I have said this before, and I will say it again. I used to say to my Hafiz students that used to come from England for almost 7 years and perform the Ramadan prayers with us, I would always highlight where they're going wrong. As a society, the Muslims never integrated in the society, number one. Not in general, but in a larger scale, you go to Bradford, you go to Birmingham, you go to Blackburn, you go to Huddersfield, you go to Manchester, you go to Leeds, you go to London, you go to East London, you go all the way up, and you go all the way down south, all the way from Wales to Scotland. In majority of the cities, the Muslims have concentrated themselves. Their concentration is so strong, it's based on ethnicity for a large part of it. If you have a section of Pakistanis, like in Bradford, it's the most Pakistanis outside of Pakistan. They just try to picture that. You have a Pakistan in England. Okay, what's wrong with that? I'm trying to be racist tonight? No, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you don't want to learn the language of the society, you don't want to integrate in society, there is a problem looming in the back. This is number one. Number two, Carl, the Muslim community is a large number. Did you know that over there in England?
Yes, I did.
They're very large in number. They're very apparent. You could see them everywhere. Halal food is widely accessible. Halal food is available in Manchester Airport. Tandoori chicken masala was a national dish for I don't know how many years, maybe 2 decades. They have a good foothold in their presence. And a lot of people are educating in Islam. A lot of scholars have graduated from institutions within UK and abroad. But when they graduated, they only saw 3 things to do. Either teach Quran or in a mosque, become an imam or a sub-imam, or open a school or a seminary or something. So the result is the scholars and their knowledge is circulating within their own circles. And no one thought on a larger scale, I'm talking beyond the general masses, that, you know what, let's get involved in building our societies, bridging faith, interfaith. Have you heard of something called interfaith, Carl?
I have heard interfaith and I have heard intra-faith. But that's another story for another time.
That's another story. We're not going to go there tonight. So interfaith is something that's maybe a bit over a decade old here in America as we talk about our great involvement on a large scale. Maybe a good 12, 13 years we've been really involved post 9/11. Before that, it was here and there. It was very minimal. But in England, it's not even a decade old yet. Why? Because now they're catching up to realizing that this hate and discrimination is not going to go unless you engage with the people. Why didn't the scholars lead this? Why didn't the scholars promote unity and understanding? Why did they allow people to continue making their cultural bubbles, which in fact did not preserve their Islam? A lot of those children don't want to be identified as Islam, as Muslims, because the culture dominated what the faith was about. So you have an adverse reaction to what you thought was going to be a solution. So these are problems. And the third thing, Carl, is our inability to accept our wrong, build our community's grassroots up, and become betterment. Sadiq is the mayor of London. He's doing an amazing job. This is a job that should have been done a long time ago. It should have been promoted. One thing that I feel is such a problem in the UK is we're so caught up in our cultural, religious, doctrine version of faith that we could fight it to death. Women are still not allowed in every mosque, right? People in those days, you see in the 90s, the Regent's Park Mosque in London is a really liberal mosque because women come to pray and people come in and out. That's what your mosque is supposed to do. You're supposed to be service for humanity. You're supposed to be a headquarters for everyone to come and see. You're supposed to be a place where you can bring forth goodness in the location that you exist. But unfortunately, Carl, it's still something we're catching up on. So these things are not new. They're not surprising. It's unfortunate reality, but it's something that we need to address and fix. And there's going to be many more Punish a Muslim days unless we stand up and do so. And racism has been embedded in there for so long. Carl, I want to tell you a story tonight. I want to tell you a story that I haven't told even my family. Should I tell it, Carl?
Well, I was going to say we've got just a couple of Facebook comments I want to float by you, but then, of course, I want to hear that story because if you haven't even told your family yet, you know I want to hear it, and what better place than live on the internet? So the first, they're actually both from Julie, and I wanted to make sure that we got this down. Julie, I hope he answered your first question here. It's this was like 9 minutes ago. It says there's a fine line between trying to raise awareness of the problem of Islamophobia, but at the same time avoiding feeding into the potentially viral hate campaign unintentionally. How do we reclaim the narrative while at the same time raising awareness to seemingly real threats of raising hate targeting Muslims? And just so everybody knows, I can't actually read. I'm just old and blind, and I'm trying to read my laptop, which is way over there. Julie also commented that it's important we not... Let me bring my laptop closer, maybe? It's important we not remain silent when hatred targeting us rises and threatens our safety. However, we must also watch how our reactions might escalate the severity of such hatred as well. There's a fine line between self-protection and victim blaming. And yeah, there you go.
Well, to answer that, it's a very simple thing. Thank you, Sister Julie, for tuning in. I'm
still going to hold you to that story, but go ahead.
And I'm trying to control my emotional state tonight because I feel as Muslims, only we can reclaim the narrative. And it's only going to happen if we bog down and we focus and we do what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to constructively build ourselves, our families, our communities, and let that effect speak on our behalf. How many more times do we have to go and say we're not terrorists? How many times do we have to go and tell people we're not evil, we're not a threat? When people perceive us to be a threat, it is a direct sign that we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. And so if we have two options in front of us, I hope you and I are on the same page. Either we could continue reacting to everything that's happening out there. Someone shot up YouTube's headquarters tonight. It's like, is it a Muslim or not? I heard something in the grapevine that it might be a lady who's a Muslim. Oh my God, what we're going to do? We're going to call. Guess what? If she committed the crime, you can't turn back time. It's done. You'll just have to face it. But the people will only stand on your side if you're like, you know what? I'm not going to keep on apologizing for every person committing every crime. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to represent the goodness of Islam that I'm learning and teaching myself and those around me, so that effect can demonstrate goodness, wherein I don't have to respond to acts of terrorism. My faith and my actions have already negated that being any part of my faith. I think that's what we have to do. Mm-hmm.
And now that story.
Well, let me go back about reactive. So I'm going to go back to like 2004 or 5. My wife and I were coming back from Hajj. For a good 6, 7 days, we were in a building prior to the return flight where we never had access to TV and stuff. And at that time, having a cell phone wasn't like internet enabled cell phone. It wasn't something that we had. And so when we got to France, they were standing by the gate of the plane. Now, anytime you transferred through Paris or London, it was really tough to get through. And at the gate, as soon as you exited the plane, there was police officers checking your passports and then telling you to go or stand. My wife and I and another sister and her husband were one of the last people to get out, and they said that they would like to see our wives' faces, right? My wife at that time was wearing the veil. And they said to her that if you want, we can see it here. If not, we could go to the station. There's a police station in the airport, and you could see it. And like you could show it to a female. Now we thought, hey, that's fine. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Fajr's gonna end like at 5:30. You know what? Fine. We'll just go to the station. And it's just they escorted us. They had guns and everything else. They escorted us. Once we got in there, they gave us a cold shoulder for almost an hour. And then the lady was screaming and shouting. And then what happened was a guy came and said that I want to see your wife's face and the other ladies. And I'm like, you know what? They said a female was going to come, but he'd go, look, I want to see it. And so she came up and said, this is France. We do it our way. This is not America. Right? So the other lady started crying. And I said to her, listen, we're going to miss our Fajr prayer. It's not worth it. Just show it to him. It's a security issue. Show it to him and off we go. And so what happened was they showed it. We went and I was doing wudu and I met a guy at the bathroom who was cleaning. And he said to me, did you hear what's happening? And I said, I don't know what's happening, but they just harassed us in the airport here. And he said that there is this thing going on, cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And that's caused a great uproar here and around the country. And I said to him, you know what? Let them do it. You know, guys and girls and sisters and brothers, if they want to burn the Quran, let Terry Jones come and burn the Quran. The Quran's not going to die. Allah's not going to die. If they want to draw cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, let them draw a whole volume of it. It's not going to change our Islam. It's not going to desecrate the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It's not going to change his value that Allah has set in the society. Let it happen. But what do? We have protests around the country. God forbid someone writes something in Bangladesh or Pakistan. We call it blasphemy. We call for off with his head. And if the government doesn't do something, we go and kill that person. That's what's happening in these societies. This is called the reactive nature of a Muslim community that is not rooted in their religion. Rather, they're jumping from left and right. So this is exactly the problem. I said to him, it's fine. Someone asked me when I got back, Fox News interviewed me when we were having a session in Fort Myers. They said, are you guys going to do a reactive countermeasure? I said, what do you mean? Will you do like a draw a Jesus day, right? Like draw a Jesus cartoon? I said, you know what? We won't even do draw a Santa Claus cartoon. You know why? Because doesn't matter who the individual is, by mocking someone, which our religion is against, it doesn't make a situation better. So this is to highlight the reactive nature of Muslims, which continues till this day, unfortunately. Carl, I know you want that story. So this is what happened. My wife and my children don't even know this. My parents know this. In 1991, we were traveling in England. We came to visit my brother who was spending his first year in studies, and we spent 2 months traveling the country in different mosques, my parents and I, along with another few groups of individuals. We were in a town known as Preston. So if anyone from England is on tonight or they listen to it on the podcast, do give us a hello or a salam. We appreciate it, our British crowd. And so what happened was on our way back to the mosque, we were driving in this brother's car. We're maybe around the corner from the mosque, and a bunch of youngsters come up and they start throwing stones on the car. 1991. Now, Carl, I was 11, 12 years old at that time, but it didn't make sense to me, Carl. Why would someone throw stones on someone's car? Does that make sense, Carl?
Not at all. Of all the things you could say and do, I mean, why would you do that?
And the thing was, this is 91. We're getting around this Ireland, IRA, British thing that's been going on in the country. And they threw stones. And I'm like, why did they do that? And so the guys who are with me, they're like, they're just some hooligan kids. Let it go. Don't say anything about it. Let's let it go, right? We got to the mosque. We went in for prayers. And it just bothered me, Carl. I'm not a thug or a bully. I was like, I want to know why you did that because it bothered me. And so I slipped out of the mosque. I walked down the street. I walked a few blocks, maybe 2 blocks or so, and I went into that neighborhood. Okay, and this is to highlight, Carl, how the Muslims are so segregated till today. Majority, not all, of the Muslims live in concentrated ethnic environments within the UK, not seeing the importance of mixing with others. And they've started that now, which is good, and I applaud them for that. So those guys saw me coming, Carl, and I wasn't armed. I was just walking towards them. I had no intention to harm them. I was wearing a tracksuit my father bought me, an Adidas tracksuit, which I really wanted, so he purchased it for me. It was fairly new, and a few days. And I walked straight up and I said, "Why did you guys throw stone on our cars?" And the next second, I saw more youngsters coming out from around, right? And I was cornered. And Carl, guess what they did to me?
They hailed you as their hero and made you their leader?
I wish that would ever happen. They beat me. They beat me hard. The first thing I got across my head was a cricket bat. They beat me to the ground. I just curled up, had my hands, my feet down, and they continued to hit me, kick me, beat me. And I remember that someone ran them away, and I was then taken back to the mosque. When I was being brought back towards the mosque, because the individual who was taking me, of course, I was not white or black amongst the people living there. I'm brown. I'm a Muslim. That's like 2 blocks down. He was taking me that direction, and the doctor whose car was pelted was outside looking at his car, and he saw me. He quickly came and grabbed me. He said, "What did you do? I told you not to go." And so he rushed me in because the last thing he wanted was for my father to see my condition. He took me to the washing area, the wudu area, had some cuts in my knees and bruises and whatever else, and he just cleaned me up a bit and had me lie down. And then my father came. He told my father what happened. The next day I went to my mom and explained to her what happened. But Carl, hatred has been around for the longest time. And are you telling me that just by screaming or hashtagging, we're going to change the narrative? We're not. Let's get up from this fantasy dream. Let us realize that this is real stuff that's happening in this world. People are getting killed because they're a perceived threat in our society. Because you wear a hijab, you're a perceived threat. That wasn't the case with Punish a Muslim Day in America. That was not the case at all. So anyone who wants to say otherwise, I disagree. That in America, Punish a Muslim Day wasn't as big as we Muslims made it. But if we're going to change things, 3 things I'm letting our audience go with tonight. Bog down, better your condition and your connection to God and your faith, embed the characters and morals of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and in result, let your demeanor, let your words, let your actions speak for you and your Islam, where then the mayor, the chief of police, the white guy in the corner of the street can stand up and say, these people are Muslims and they're only good. No evil comes from their faith or from their actions.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode. Before we wrap up for tonight, let's do a little bit of house cleaning. Julie, if you are still with us and listening, right here at the bottom of the screen, you see this email address right here? If you could send us an email, I would really like to address everything you're saying, but send us an email and we'll get it off to the Imam. And in a future episode, it probably won't be 50 because we're planning some stuff, but we'll get your comments and questions answered. Sister Layla is with us tonight. Assalamu alaikum, sister. Thank you for joining us. She says that as Muslims, we cannot just shrug our shoulders and say, oh, well, we need to keep speaking out so that our voices can be heard. And I agree. And let's see. She also said, we may not change the world's perception about Islam and Muslims, but we may change one person's mind. And you are absolutely correct, because we are judged on our actions, and it's all about changing hearts and minds, and the only way to do that is through your actions with each other. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will say thank you to everyone that logged on online. Thank you to everyone that left comments. Thank you to everyone that shared this. Thank you to everyone that has downloaded this on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and some other websites, even downloaded it from our website. We want to thank everyone for joining us. And until next week, we will say, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.